going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Kev, Dan, and Stevie P coming at you once again. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, fellas? What's going on, listeners?
Hey, what's up, Fourth and Inches listeners? What's up, guys?
All right, so we're going to get into our final division in our divisional breakdown. We're going to go into the AFC North. A little bit of news in the AFC North as well over the past couple days, so should be an interesting podcast. But first, don't forget to check out the website at www.fourthandinchesff.com as www.4THNINCHESFF.com for a bunch of content. You got articles, blogs, player profiles, and you can subscribe to our draft guide, which features the decision maker, which is a tiered out guideline for 3 different drafting styles. You got one for your risky drafter, one for your conservative drafter, and then there's the tweener, which is kind of a mix of both. The draft guide also features the cheat codes, which is a visual breakdown of every team's stats from last year. It's a great tool to prepare for your drafts, and it's the same tool we use to give you guys information on the podcast. So check that out, and also look for us on the Fantasy Life app. We'll be doing some start-sit questions throughout the year, and we're looking into doing a keeper questions segment on there as well. And if you're listening, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. We've also partnered with fantasygo.com, which we kind of talked to you about over the last couple podcasts. Basically, you go on there and sign up, and you can pick an analyst. Of course, you'd be picking us to set your lineup for you. And, it's a great tool to help you win your fantasy championship, so check that out as well. So let's get into the guts and glory of the podcast, the AFC North. We are going to start with the Baltimore Ravens.
We are first going to start with mentioning that football starts on Thursday.
Yeah.
Now, it's the boring ass Hall of Fame game, which nobody likes. It's tough to watch, but you turn that TV on, and football will be finally back on TV. So let's not let that sneak on by. I mean, it's something. We're creeping up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than ready. Once basketball season's done, I like baseball, but I cannot watch baseball. So once basketball's done, I go through like a 2-month hiatus or a month and a half hiatus of sports, and it drives me nuts because there ain't nothing to do. So I can't really wait for football to get back on. All right, so Baltimore. We're going to start off with Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram right now is going at the 8th pick in the 4th round in PPR leagues. What do you guys think his upside is, coming into this year? Dan, I'll start with you because you've kind of talked about your feelings on Mark Ingram coming into the year. Why don't you get into how you're feeling?
I just think it's going to be a more balanced backfield. They're definitely going to give some other guys some opportunities, but I mean, let's not forget to mention that it is going to be a running offense for sure. Lamar Jackson even he's a runner at first. He's not the most accurate quarterback. I know in Louisville he was a Heisman winner, but he definitely hasn't progressed that into the NFL, and they want to be a run first team. So as I know that Ingram is going to be the starter. He's going to be getting the most workload, but I just think that it's going to be too much of a balanced backfield, a little bit of a committee back there. So 4th round, I like some other guys in that value there.
Yeah, I like Mark Ingram. I think, like Dan just said, this is going to be a highly used backfield. I could definitely see him getting, a lot of carries. You know what I mean? I don't want to put a number on it because, but he's going to be the main back on a rushing offense. We saw what Chris Carson. Yeah, we saw what Gus Bus did last year. We saw what Chris Carson did in an offense that gave him a lot of carries. I think it's going to be. I don't think he's going to get as much volume as Carson, but I think he's going to be pretty close. So I would say, I don't think 250 total touches is out of the question for Mark Ingram at all. So He's definitely a guy that has, to me, 12 to 15 upside, and on the low end he'd be still an RB2. I don't see him dropping out of the top 24. So, somebody that I'm confident in taking as my RB2 and not really stressing over it.
Yeah, I like Mark Ingram at his spot at his value as well. Much like Steve said, he's going to be the main back on a run-first offense. Actually, Chris Carson to me is a great comparison because I think you could literally see similar numbers. They did add Justice Hill in the draft, who we'll talk about. He might be there for a little bit more of the receiving work out of the backfield. But yeah, I like Mark Ingram, and like I think he has top 15 upside, and very low.
Does it worry you guys that he's going into his 9th year and he also took a huge pounding at Alabama? So I mean, 8 years in the NFL and
but
5 years in Alabama.
He didn't take the same pounding over the last 8 years in New Orleans. New Orleans does a good job at splitting their backfield. They've never really used more than one, or they've never really used just one running back. They always use more than one running back. So I think
that's also what worries me too, is that he's never been a guy that, Steve said 250. He's always been around that 175 range his whole career. He only cracked 1,000 yards twice in his entire career. So I don't really see ninth year running back Mark Ingram coming onto the scene and having his breakout year after, he's been pretty consistently a 800-yard rusher throughout his whole entire career.
But even as an 800-yard rusher, he's been a top RB2, and that's the thing. Like, if you're giving him another 50 carries, I don't know what his receiving work may dip. It may stay the same compared to what it was last year, just based on the fact it's two different offenses. And, Baltimore is going to be much more geared towards running than New Orleans was. But even New Orleans runs the football a ton. But if you're going to give Mark Ingram another 75 carries, last year I think he was the number 15 running back in PPR leagues, and that was missing, I think, the first 3 or 4 games because of suspension. So, you're giving that guy an extra 75 touches or extra 50 touches and, a full season. Yeah, I definitely think he's an RB2. He was an RB2 last year without,
and this is the thing for me that makes that, I guess I would say, leads me to believe that even if he doesn't have like a supreme rushing yardage season, I'm not worried about him. That's kind of why I said he's safe between 15 and 24. So if you look at the numbers from last year, excuse me, I'm a little hoarse, but Alex Collins had 21 carries inside the 20. He had 12 carries inside the 10. He had 6 carries inside the 5. 6 carries inside the 5. Gus Edwards had 16 carries inside the 20 and then 7 carries inside the 10. Javoris Allen, who's not there anymore, had 11 and 7. So to me, Javoris Allen's not there. I don't think Gus Edwards gets nearly as many of those touches as he did last year.
That's not.
Yeah, I think that number might be cut in half. And Alex Collins is also not there. So I think a majority of that goal line work, even 75% of it is going to go to, Mark Ingram. And if I'm getting a guy that is getting that many, like if you just add it up, it's a lot. You're talking about Lamar Jackson got 37 carries inside the 20 and 15 inside the 10, 4 inside the 5. So if you just add those numbers up, I think it's definitely going to be, I think it's feasible to say that he's going to have, let's say, 30 carries inside the 20, 10 to 15 inside the 10, and then another, 5 to 7 easily inside the 5. And if he converts touchdowns, and there's the other thing, Gus Edwards got all those carries inside the 10. He got 0 carries inside the 5. So, there's really not where he was used at all.
A lot. They used Buck Allen. Remember, they were using Buck.
Yeah, Buck was getting. Well, if you look at Buck was really the only one that was productive. If you look inside the 5, 6 carries for 4 yards, 3 touchdowns. Everybody else was 6 carries, 2 touchdowns. Even Lamar Jackson was 4 carries, 1 touchdown. Gus Bus didn't even get a carry inside the 5. So, to me, I think that's why they brought Mark Ingram in. They know he's good around the goal line. I mean, his career average around the goal line is pretty high. So, why not bring a guy that is going to be definitely a better goal line than what you got is kind of the way I feel. So, I think he has a safe, 10 touchdown floor, really. I think he scores 10 rushing touchdowns. I don't know about the yardage. I think I agree with you with the yardage, Dan. I think, he could be, 700-800 yards, and that's not just because he's getting old. To me, that's because I think Justice Hill is fucking awesome. And I do think Justice Hill is going to get touches in that backfield, and like I said, talent wins out. So if they see that Justice Hill is a good player, they're not going to stop giving him touches. So, I could definitely see the yardages, being a little bit lower for Mark Ingram, but I think his touchdown upside is pretty safe.
Yeah, actually, in 2017, he had 230 carries for 1,124 yards. And last year, he only had 138 carries for 645 yards. You're basically, I mean, if you give this guy another, 100 carries from where he had last year, he's way over, 1,000 yards. His touchdowns definitely dipped last year, but he also missed the first 4 games. Yeah, I think, Gus Edwards from week 10 to week 16, Gus Edwards was the number 24 running back. Mark Ingram was the number 15 running back. I think Mark Ingram was worlds talented better than Gus Edwards. So, looking at what Gus Edwards did in the same offense, I definitely see Mark Ingram at least doing the same.
I want to read a quote real quick from John Harbaugh today because I actually heard it on my way home. And I want to read what he said. So he basically said that I'm going to read it because I don't want to ad lib. But where is it at? So former Ravens coach Brian Billick brought up Cam Newton's rushes, 139 in the year 2017. Without hesitation, Harbaugh said, "I'd bet the over on that one." So,
Lamar Jackson is going to be running the football.
Yeah, 139 rushes for Cam Newton, that's a lot for a quarterback. I don't know if you guys really know the stats for quarterbacks. 139 is a lot. So if you have the head coach telling you that he's going to take the over on 139 carries for Lamar Jackson, if the dude hits 250, he really is somebody that we might all be drafting very low. And this is the other thing that you really have to think about, guys. And we're talking about Lamar Miller not because, we're going to get to him more, but just the rushing. We're talking about the rushing on this team. Yeah. So with the rushing on this team, you have to include Lamar Jackson.
I was going to say, we might as well get into him because he's the next person we're going to talk about. So
with just the rushing, right? If Lamar Jackson runs the ball 150 times, let's say he averages, because quarterbacks almost always average more yards per carry than your average running back because, they're able to scramble and get outside the pocket and they have open lanes. So let's say he averages on a low end 6 yards per carry. The dude is going to have close to 1,000 yards, and for your quarterback, think about it. Your quarterback gets 1 point for every 25 passing yards. At rushing, he's going to get 1 point every 10. If he gets 900 yards rushing, that's 90 fantasy points from your quarterback before he throws a pass. That's a lot. And that's not including his
Michael Vick the only quarterback that ever rushed for 1,000 yards?
Exactly, which is why I'm not going to project him for 1,000 because I don't think that's a realistic thing to say. Even with Harbaugh saying he's going to get more carries, just what Michael Vick did that year was special. 1,000 yards for a quarterback. There has been good running quarterbacks in the league. Randall Cunningham, I think, almost went for 1,000.
Yeah, he went for 9 and change, but then Vick was the only one to crack 1,000.
Exactly. So, I'm not going to say that Lamar Jackson's going to crack 1,000, but I will give him 800 to 900. And if he gets that, he's going to be a top 12 guy. Period. That's especially if you're doing 4 point per passing touchdown. To me, it's not close. He's definitely going to be a top 12 if he gets that kind of rushing value.
Yeah, I think for sure think that 900 yards is he's very capable. 139 rushes from Cam Newton in that year. Even if you say, all right, he gets 11 more for 150 carries, 6 yards per carry for a quarterback is very easy with Lamar Jackson's speed and athletic ability. So I think 900 yards is definitely feasible. Even last year, I mean, in the second half of the season last year, as bad as Lamar Jackson was, all right, he could not throw the ball for shit. He was still the number 13 quarterback overall in the second half of the year. That just shows you how much a rushing quarterback can really, help you in fantasy. And if he improves at all the way he had, I mean, he literally came out himself and said, I sucked last year. Like, I sucked. If you watch the film, I sucked. He said it himself. If he improves at all in his passing game, man, Lamar Jackson is top 7, top 6 upside. Like,
he has like an extreme upside that I think people are sleeping on.
His upside's unbelievable, and right now he's being drafted in the 12th round at pick 5. Like, he's not a bad flyer to take a shot on, and then maybe team him up with a Ben Roethlisberger or somebody like that who is going to give you solid, maybe a Phillip Rivers. Like Phillip Rivers last year was in the second half of the year was number 12 quarterback. I pretty much think that's where Phillip Rivers lies. So at least you can get a back-end quarterback 1 and then draft Lamar Jackson with him. And if Lamar Jackson pops, man, those are the type of picks that can win you your league when you're drafting, number 7 overall quarterbacks in the 12th round.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is 100% a fair assessment of what Lamar's capabilities are because, I mean, last year, if you're looking at, his quarterbacking numbers, they were definitely, Kev's right, they were nothing special. I mean, a 58.2 completion percentage, he only threw for 1,200 yards, but then again, like we said, he only started 7 games. So if he starts, if he doubles that, that's let's say he throws for right around what Josh Allen threw for last year. Let's say 2,800, but he runs for 900 and scores 10 rushing touchdowns, which I definitely don't think is out of the question at all, and then throws for another 10. So let's say 20 total touchdowns. To me, it's simple, and this is the easy way to do the math. So if you're a league that does 1 point for every 25, that's basically standard most leagues. There are those exceptions where people go crazy with quarterback scoring and they give them 1 point every 10 yards and all that shit. But let's say you have 1 for 25, just like everybody else does. Most of everybody else does. For a quarterback to match his passing upside with 1,000 yards, you know what I mean? Like they have to throw 2,500 yards more. Yep. You know what I mean? So you're talking 2,500 yard passing on just.
It's a 5,000 yard season.
Exactly.
It's a 5,000 yard season.
So if he throws for 27, right, and then he has 1,000 yards rushing, that's like Dan just said, it's a 5,200 yard passing season with 20 touchdowns. And the passing touchdowns, if you're in a 4 point per passing touchdown league, his 10 rushing touchdowns is equivalent to 14 touchdowns, passing touchdowns.
And Steven, that's why basically that year that Cam Newton went off and had that monster, 800 yard season with, what did he have, 14 or 15 touchdowns?
Yeah.
He was a quarterback finishing in running back status because he was just that high above everybody else because of the rushing ability that he
had. And he finished number 1 that year.
He destroyed everybody that year. Yeah, it was incredible. So, yeah, I mean, what do you guys for me, I don't think for me, I'm just going to be a spectator of Lamar in normal PPR and regular leagues. But what do you guys think? Like in a dynasty league, you think he'd be an awesome dynasty quarterback to grab?
Oh, yeah. Sure. I definitely think so. And this is the thing. A lot of people, I've heard a lot of analysts saying that Lamar, they're trying to stay away from him in dynasty because they think in 2 or 3 years down the road, the Ravens are just going to be like, nope, this guy is just not good enough to help us win. And I don't think that's the case because if you just look at the way they're building the team, they're building the team around him. Like they're not building the team and then saying, Lamar, do this. They're building the team to fit what he does. And to me, if that's what you're going to do for a quarterback, you think this is your guy. Like, you don't build a team around a guy if you don't think he's your guy. You're like, I
want to do a quick comparison on that, Steve, because, the coach of Baltimore is who? John Harbaugh. Who is his brother? Jim Harbaugh. The same guy that took the 49ers with Colin Kaepernick to the Super Bowl. When he was doing that, they were predominantly a running team that was just using a lot of 2 tight end and even 3 tight end sets. They had Frank Gore on the field all the freaking time. Was it Frank Gore? It was Frank Gore, right?
Yeah, Frank Gore back then.
Yeah. So they were just using, that offense was geared toward helping Colin Kaepernick succeed. I think it's going to be very similar to what the Ravens do with Lamar Jackson. They're just going to open it up and then say, here, when you have your options in the passing game, take it. If not, talk and run.
Well, Baltimore's got an awesome defense. Again, it's been a few. They built that defense back up like they did back in the day. And when you have that kind of defense and you have that kind of run game, you pretty much you want to play the field position game or time of possession game. Run the ball, rely on your defense to get stops. They're not going to be the Chiefs beating teams 42-35, but they're going to want to win those 17-13 games, every single Sunday.
Yeah, and to me that's kind of the thing. Like when you think about the departures of that defense, they could be, you know what I mean? Like you're talking about Terrell Suggs is gone and Mosley's gone, and I know they replaced Weddle with Thomas, but they still had some pieces that are gone that were a big predominant force on that defense. So you don't know how good this defense is going to be. And if they're giving up points in droves, then Lamar might run even more than we're expecting.
Yeah.
There's no way to tell. Like, to me, that's why I was saying, if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this, I was saying that I think people are underrating this Ravens defense. I mean, this Ravens offense, because I do think this Ravens offense is going to be better than people are giving it credit for. I really do. I think they brought in Mark Ingram because they know he's productive. They brought in Justice Hill because they know he's productive. They brought in, to me, even the wide receivers. You know what I mean? Like you don't bring in Hollywood Brown and think that he's just going to be a regular receiver. Hollywood Brown is electric with the ball in his hands. The dude catches the ball 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and he can turn it to a 90-yard touchdown. Like he is just that good. So I don't know. To me, this offense, they built this offense to completely help Lamar, and he could have a really big season.
All right. So, any flyers? See, this is kind of a team that has a good deal of flyers to take. You got your Justice Hill right now. He's going in the 11th round. He almost doesn't even seem like a flyer. He seems like he's kind of creeping up into the, almost guaranteed to be drafted. You have Mark Andrews, who's been gaining a lot of steam. He went from being undrafted to now being the first pick in the 14th round. You have Hollywood Brown, as Steve just mentioned. His draft stock is where is he at? Damn it.
Yeah, I know Hollywood Brown is somewhere. I want to say he's like in round 14 or late 13, maybe. I'll look at it right now.
Yeah, late 13. So he's going in round 13, pick 12. And then they got Miles Boykin, who supposedly has been their most polished receiver in camp, is what the word is out of there. So, Steve, why don't you get into Justice Hill? I know you want to talk about Justice Hill. He's pretty much a guy that you've been snagging in every mock draft that I've done with you. So talk about Justice Hill a little bit.
Yeah, I just think, and I think more and more that people are starting to watch his college tape, and because now after the draft a lot of people watch, but I think now that the season's getting closer, a lot of people are trying to figure out those late round guys that they can get that could be productive. So he's starting to move up draft boards because I think people are actually starting to watch what he did in college. But he's just a super productive guy. I mean, the dude is is, he's less than 200 pounds, which is a little bit nerve wracking, but he's not going to get, if you're picking him thinking he has extreme upside, he doesn't. He does not have extreme upside. He's not going to see, I would be surprised if he gets 100 carries this year. I would think he's going to be more in like the 80 to 100 range. And I think he's going to catch a shit ton of balls. I think they brought him in to help Lamar, get the ball out of his hand quicker, because, if he's in trouble, they want a scat back there that's capable of doing stuff. And now you have guys comparing him to Alvin Kamara. I can't remember what analyst I was seeing. I was reading an article and they said, he is the new Alvin Kamara for the Ravens. When fantasy analysts start throwing Kamara's name out there, guys are going to get big jumps. Yeah, guys are going to get big jumps in ADP. So, for me, I don't see Alvin Kamara, not at all. But I do see, like a bigger Nyheim Hines, I guess, is a good comparison for me. Nyheim Hines is a guy that, caught a lot of balls last year and was, pretty productive. And, I think he could be a better Nyheim Hines is kind of what I'm penciling him in for. So later in the 13th, 14th round that been getting him, he's perfect.
Yeah, I like Marquise Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown. Or I think I don't think your Willie Sneads and your other average receivers on that roster are going to be anything beneficial for Lamar. So I think he's going to develop an early connection with Brown, and I think that they'll have a pretty good season right off the bat. So, and then Brown's another one I'm talking about dynasty where he could be potentially really, a really good pickup for somebody because he's got all the talent, he's got the speed. So he's for me, he would be the guy that I would take the flyer on.
Yep. I definitely like both of those guys. I think that they're both worth flyers in the later round because basically, like, if you've been listening to what I'm saying, when you get in the later rounds, I don't like going with, the steady Eddie guys that you kind of know what they're going to give you. I like going with, young rookies or younger players that, have, a little bit more upside and could possibly break out. And when you hear things like, this guy is Alvin Kamara or, with Hollywood Brown, I remember it was like Tyreek Hill comparisons. Like, you hear those things, and if those things do pop, like I said with Lamar Jackson, you're getting, great value in these later rounds, and those are the type of picks that can win you your leagues. I will talk about Mark Andrews a little bit because he's been gaining a lot of steam. Towards the end of the year, he finished, I believe, in the last quarter of the season, he was the number 13 tight end. He's getting a lot of steam because him and Lamar were connecting on a lot of deep balls. For me, I think he's a good pickup in dynasty leagues. I don't know if I'm necessarily picking him up in redraft personally. A lot of guys are just really high on Mark Andrews. For me, he's probably more of a wait-and-see guy, and he's probably not going to wind up on my team if he's actually being drafted. But how do you guys feel about Mark Andrews?
I think the one thing I would say about Mark Andrews is, he's a big dude, and I think that will help a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, and I think that's why he targeted him so much last year. I mean, my man is 6'5", 256, so he's basically Cam Newton size, running up and down the field. When running quarterbacks like that get in trouble, the guy they're going to look for is the biggest dude on the field. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those things. When you're, I don't know how many of you guys have played football. Me and Kev played football. Like when you're in the heat of the moment, you're running around. You're looking for the first person you can see, and the first person you can see is a 6'5", 256 pound tight end. You know what I mean? He's a big fucking dude. So, and he's quick for a dude that big. You know what I mean? He ran a 4.67. For a guy that's 6'5", 250. That's pretty quick. You know what I mean? I think I don't want to sound like I'm hyping him too much because I don't think he's got like, top 8 upside. I think anywhere from 10 to 12 is probably, if he finishes that high, that's basically where I think his ceiling is. So I don't want to hype him up too much, but to me, he is definitely somebody that in the later rounds, if I'm waiting, and I want to take 2 tight ends, because that's really the only time I take 2 tight ends when I take a really late guy, because I want guys with upside. So for me, he's definitely a guy that if you want to throw a dart at, could be a good dart.
Yeah, I like Andrews. I think Steve pretty much was right on. He's got that 10 to 12 potential, because I think Lamar Jackson, with his scramblability, getting outside the pocket, the tight ends normally do tend to break free, and being that big of a body, he's going to definitely see at least as many targets as he saw last year, if not more. So probably not somebody on my list. He's not somebody I put a note next to, but if he put up a 6, 7, or we had 5 and change last year, but if you put up a 700-800 yard season this year and 7-8 touchdowns, it definitely wouldn't surprise me.
All right, so now we are going to move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. First guy on the Bengals we're going to get into is Joe Mixon. Right now, Joe Mixon is going at 3rd pick in round 2. Do you guys think Joe Mixon has top 3 upside? Do you think that he could, enter his way into that elite group of running backs, or do you still think he's just going to stay right kind of where he is, right on the outside, early round 2 pick? He was very good last year. He wasn't bad, but, he wasn't what those other guys were. So do you think he's able to enter that group of Zeke, Kamara, even David Johnson, as you get down further there? Is he able to get into that group, or is he kind of where he is, just, a very good second round pick?
If he had a better offensive line, I would definitely 100% say that he has that kind of upside. But, to me, it's going to be hard for him. I don't think the Bengals offense is going to be as improved as everybody is saying. I like Zach Taylor. I think Zach Taylor was a good pickup for them, as head coach. Anybody on the McVay tree is a guy that I kind of want to experiment with if I can. But in the same breath, this offensive line is not good. AJ Green is going to miss 6 to 8 weeks now with a ligament tear in his ankle. And by the way, I listened to somebody say that he constantly is hurting the same leg. This is the opposite leg of what he hurt last year. The toe last year was on his right side. This ligament is on the left. So it's 2 totally different things. They're not related at all. So, don't listen to anybody that tells you that. But, Joe Mixon, I think, is highly tethered to the production of that offense when they're playing well. And without AJ Green on the field, I just don't know how productive this offense is going to be. I think they're going to have a hard time moving the ball. You saw it last year. Boyd was terrible when AJ was out of there. Mixon's numbers went down. I think his fantasy points went down by like almost 4.5 fantasy points per game without AJ Green. So, without AJ Green, if he's not healthy all year and this offense continues to play the way it did last year, I don't see him having that kind of upside.
Yeah, Mixon he's extremely talented kid. He's super hyped coming out of college, and obviously his first year. Last year he had a pretty decent year, but he still has huge upside to me. I think top 3 overall is a little bit of a stretch, but he's just so talented. Now with no AJ Green, he's gonna get a ton of work. There's no question that he's going to get touches this year, and he's going to get a lot of them. So it's just going to come down to if that offense can put anything together, if they can rally around without having AJ Green, or if Tyler Boyd can be the receiver that they're anticipating him to be. Tyler Eifert, if he can stay on the field, I mean, there's another kid that, a tight end that they thought was going to be a legendary talent, and he's hurt every single freaking year. So it's the team. To me, the team's a mess. I don't really expect any kind of progression from them, but the one bright side I will say is that I think Joe Mixon will get a lot of work this year. I tend to like running back. I mean, if aside from your Barkley, because he's just once in a generation type talent, I tend to like running backs and wide receivers that are normally in a better offense, and I just don't like the Cincinnati offense. So, I'm wishing Joe Mixon well with trying to be the entire team, but he's like, he's not, like I said about a couple, Baltimore players. He's not on my radar right now.
Yeah, last year Joe Mixon had a total of 280 touches and still finishes the number 9 running back in fantasy compared to some of the other guys that, really didn't get as much work. I mean, he still finished behind, even Kareem Hunt, who, I think sat out like the last 5 weeks of the season. I'm sorry. No, he did not. I was on a different week. I'm sorry. But yeah, to me, Joe Mixon is kind of what he is. He's kind of a end of the second round, middle to beginning of the second round, and he's going to be a bottom RB1. So if you get a wide receiver in the first round, I think Joe Mixon is a good guy to team him up with. But like I said, I wouldn't expect Joe Mixon to all of a sudden have that breakout year where, it's just, he creeps into that top five territory. Especially like if you look last year, when that team was winning is when Joe Mixon was performing well. When they were losing, he was terrible. And I have a feeling that the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to be very good this year. It's all depending on what that offense is. And if they're able to use Mixon the way they are Gurley, who knows? But, that offensive line is a bottom 5 offensive line according to PFF. And when you put a running back behind a bad offensive line, it just equals bad things unless you have some of the best talent in the world. So, Mixon, I think he's very talented, but I just don't have him in that top 5 category. But I'm not scared to get him in the middle of the second round or beginning of the second round. I've seen him going in the first round. That just scares me a little bit if AJ Green's not healthy, and there's just so much more focus put on him because last year he did not do well in that situation. So let's get into AJ Green. Right now, AJ Green, surprisingly, according to Fantasy Calculator, his ADP hasn't really dropped. He's still going at the end of the third round with pick 9. Do you think where do you think the value comes in now? So 6 to 8 weeks he's supposed to miss, according to Adam Schefter's report. 6 weeks would put him missing week 1, coming back week 2. 8 weeks would put him coming back in, I think, week 3. If he misses 3, let's say he misses 3 games, where's a good spot to draft AJ Green?
See, this is hard. For me, AJ Green is a top 12 wide receiver in the league, without a doubt, talent-wise.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have is he missed the last 7 games of the season last year. Now he's missing another 8 weeks with a torn ligament in his knee. In his left ankle. The guy has just missed a lot of time, and we have not seen how we have not been able to see how he's bounced back from that toe injury. I mean, if you remember when he came back in that game in, I believe it was week 10 that he tried to go, and it was just like, no, he can't. He's not going to make it.
Yeah.
He tried to give it a go, and that toe just was not beat. And he's just, I don't know. He scares me a lot. Of all the wide receivers that are going that high, He scares me the most. I think. I mean, like even more than Sammy Watkins or Odell Beckham, and both of those guys have missed a shit ton of time. So I won't be taking AJ after this injury. Before this injury, I was happy to get him in the third. After this injury, this especially ligament tears and things with your feet and ankles, that shit can just flare up all season long. You know what I mean? If they bring him back too fast, they don't let him completely heal. He's gonna run a dig route. Or he's gonna run something where he needs to use his feet, and he's just gonna do it again, or he's just gonna hurt something else. The body is all connected. So you hurt this thing, your other part of your body starts to compensate for it because you're injured here, and then you get this injury. I mean, you tear a calf muscle, or you fucking do something else. It's just I don't know. He just scares me. I'm probably not drafting AJ.
Yeah, I mean, AJ, he's a top 10 receiver. I mean, he's definitely a top 10 talent. So if you can get him we're talking before this news came out today, but if you can get him in the third round with his kind of ability and upside, then that's a steal. But with this news and with his injury history, I mean, there's just you gotta really scratch your head and think, like, is this guy going to be on and off again in the field the whole year? Is he going to, produce at a round 3 value? A guy that you can get in round 3 that is a little more consistent, a little more, stays healthier. So, I mean, if you're ballsy and you want to take that chance on him, obviously he's probably not going to go round 3 now. He might drop to round 4 or 5. But it's still a risky pick because you don't know how he's going to come back from this injury, and he's recovering from the last injury. I mean, he hasn't played since the last injury. So I love AJ Green's talent. I mean, he is fun to watch, but he's too much high risk.
Yeah, see me, he's actually a risk I would take if he starts to drop into the 5th round, 6th, maybe 6th.
If he drops that low, I mean,
I don't think he's going to go
third round though. I'm not fucking with him. If he drops in the 5th or later, I'm definitely, he's got too much talent to not take him.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you look last year, Julian Edelman was suspended for the first 4 games of the season, and he was going in round 7. 6. I think he was going. Let me see. I think in PPR leagues, I think he was probably going in round 6. Like, that's great value. And Edelman wound up as, I think, a top 24 receiver when it was all said and done, if I'm not mistaken. And from the time he came back to the time to the end of the year, he was a top 10 receiver. He was a number 10 receiver overall. So, it's all about the value with AJ Green. If this injury does start to scare people away and he starts to drop into the 5th round, that's where I'm taking that gamble, man. Because if AJ Green is able to put it together for, let's say he sits out 3 games and puts, he's going to give you what it would be regular season wise, it'd be 9 regular season games in fantasy and then potentially 3 playoff games. If he stays healthy for those 9 regular season games, I feel like you're almost a lock for the playoffs because he's your flex. You're going to probably get a wide or he's your wide receiver too, and you really bulked up at running back. So, barring health, man, I think if AJ Green slips into the 5th round now, he hasn't dipped at all really yet. He's still at the back end of the 3rd round. I'm not drafting him there. That's way too much of a price for a guy that had an injury history last year and got hurt pretty much on the first day of camp this year. But if he starts to slide into like the 5th round, yeah, I'm taking it. I'm taking a gamble there.
Yeah. So it's real quick. I just want to bring this up because. So I was looking at different numbers, and I brought up. Pro Football Reference has a section where you can look up the total yards per game for each team, or average of every team for whatever the past. I think it's like 30 years it goes back. And I was looking, and last year was the highest amount of total yards on offense since 2000. I believe it was like 13. So. Last year was a very high year. And the reason I bring that up is because, I'm looking at AJ Green's fantasy points per game last year. So his fantasy points per game last year in a PPR was 16.6 per game, right? In 2000, and that ranked number 16. In 2017, he only averaged 14.3 points per game PPR and was the 11th wide receiver in fantasy football. So he averaged almost 2.5 points more than he did in 2017 and was the number 16. He dropped 5 spots. So the correlation is basically the league is becoming just more and more pass heavy. And like Kev said, in round, if I'm getting him in round 5, yeah. When I said I'm not taking him, I mean I'm not taking him in round 3. I'm definitely not taking him around 3. Definitely not taking him early round 4. But if he drops to, the end of round 4, beginning of round 5, that's definitely a chance that I would take because at that point, if you have a late pick in 4, you can just come right back and get another receiver to back him up if that's what he's going to be your number 2.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen. I don't know why, people are still drafting AJ Green at the end of the 3rd round. I really don't. But if he's going to if he misses 3 games, I would expect his ADP to slide into the end, at least a round. And if that's the case, like I said, to me that's a great value because AJ Green is a wide receiver 1 talent. If he stays healthy and puts it all together for the rest of that season, like I said, he's one of those values that can really help you win a league. So what about his counterpart, Tyler Boyd? Right now, Tyler Boyd is going in the 6th round at pick 2. Just got a nice little contract. I think 4 years, $43 million, was it? 43?
I think
somewhere.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there. 4 years, $43 million. Basically paid him like a wide receiver 2. If you remember, they tried to do this with Marvin Jones a couple years back, and Marvin Jones bet on himself and went to Detroit, and I think Marvin Jones has done pretty well in Detroit outside of last year. Tyler Boyd said, I'm just taking the money, screw betting on myself this year. I'm going to chill here and, have myself a nice little $40 million paycheck. That being said, he was, last year, much has been made about his effectiveness with AJ Green on the field compared to no AJ Green on the field. Do you think that his value slides a little bit if AJ Green is out for any time? Do you think it increases at all for any bit of time? Do you think it stays the same? Where do you guys see the value of Tyler Boyd going with the AJ Green injury?
Go ahead, Dan. We haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Thanks, guys. I think it increases. I know you guys might say it decreases because of what last year's stats show, but I think it increases. You got to have a wide receiver 1, and wide receiver 1s always see more targets. So, you put 2 and 2 together, it's going to equal 4. So, I wasn't huge on Tyler Boyd, throughout this year, doing the research and looking at some of his previous games. I think he's just an, slightly above average receiver, back end wide receiver 2. But, if I don't know, we don't. The thing is, we don't know how much time AJ Green is actually going to miss, so it's hard to really put people in slots right now. But let's say AJ Green misses 3 games, I would say that I like Tyler Boyd in the 6th round. If AJ Green's there, and I'm looking elsewhere because I think there's better talent in the 6th round than Tyler Boyd. But if AJ Green's missing 3 games and coming back, and we don't know if AJ Green's going to even be productive coming right back with all these injuries, then I think Tyler Boyd steps up and produces, somewhat. But it's a bad team, so it's really, even they're not going to be putting a lot of wins together. But I think he's going to see a lot of targets, so I think that'll equal some yards and some touchdowns for Cincy.
Yeah, I think that Tyler Boyd. Okay, so we have to remember that Marvin Lewis is no longer the coach there. So that
final after 100 years.
Exactly. So that whole scheme, that whole bullshit that they had last year is gone. I think that Zach Taylor is a much more competent offensive mind, capable of figuring out ways to get Tyler Boyd the ball and figuring out ways how to make him productive without AJ Green being there. you know. So for me, I think that AJ, with that AJ being gone, I don't think that hurts him as much as it did last year. I think last year, Marvin Lewis relied so much on AJ Green's talent opening up the field that I think Zach Taylor, is going to be able to scheme Tyler Boyd open, and I think he'll be very productive without AJ being there. So, he's definitely a guy that I wouldn't say I'm moving him up too much because, like you said, AJ might be back either week 1, week 3. Even if he waits until week 4 to come back, I don't think that moves him up draft boards significantly. Maybe just a couple of spots, but I think Boyd is basically going to be a top 24 guy, and I basically have had him there since before the preseason. So I'm not really moving him up or down. I like him where he is.
Yeah, and it's funny. So I talked about his supposedly his worst numbers with AJ Green not being on the field compared to with AJ on the field. We have to remember that he only played 2 of those games with Andy Dalton. The other 5 games he was playing with Jeff Driscoll at quarterback. So that says a lot right in itself. Like he didn't play with he didn't play with his starting quarterback in a lot of those games, so obviously his numbers are going to be affected. Another thing that I want you guys to think about is Zach Taylor comes from the Rams, okay? The Rams inside the red zone use the slot receiver. So if he's bringing that offense over to Cincinnati, Tyler Boyd could see a lot of red zone work, which is what we love in fantasy. We love guys that are going to score touchdowns. So if Tyler Boyd takes over that Cooper Kupp role. You guys know I love Cooper Kupp if you listen to the NFC West podcast. I think Tyler Boyd could have a monster year, whether AJ's hurt or not. Now, as far as his value, I love his value. I probably wouldn't move him up. There's guys that are going in the 5th that I like him better than. There's guys that are going around him. Like I like him better than Mike Williams. I like him better than DJ Moore. Trying to think of the other guys. In PPR, I think I like Jarvis Landry a little more in PPR, but if it's standard, I think I would go with Tyler Boyd. But I don't think I'm reaching into the 5th round to grab Boyd unless it's, unless I absolutely needed a receiver. So I kind of like his value where it's at, and I don't really see it changing too much for me. But I do like Tyler Boyd this year, and I agree. He has top 20 upside. He could definitely be in that, and he's definitely to me going to finish as a wide receiver too if he stays healthy for the whole year. Anybody else on the team you guys want to mention? Tyler Eifert at all? Gio Bernard, good handcuff. I mean, nothing real.
I think Tyler Eifert's the same thing as Mark Andrews, basically. They're dart throw guys that later in your drafts, if you want to throw darts at them and hope that they pan out, I don't think it's a bad idea.
And I think
Eifert's been in the league for like 6 years, and he's played what's equivalent to maybe a season and a half, 2 seasons.
Yeah.
He has been plagued with injuries worse than any player I can remember in recent history. It's a shame because. His first, he had so much hype coming out, and he may have all the talent in the world, but we just cannot find out because he's always off the field.
Yeah, and I think at this point, when it comes to John Ross, everybody's pretty much done. He's already hurt again in camp, and that's just a dude in the first. That was a total first-round bust for them. I don't even know what they were thinking. I think they took him in like the 9th pick too. I think
he ran that ridiculous 40, and that was it. It was all hype.
So much hype. With that being said, we're going to move on to, speaking of hype, we're going to move on to the most hyped team in the NFL right now, the Cleveland Browns. We're going to start off with Odell Beckham Jr. Coming over from New York. I've actually seen a good deal of Odell Beckham training camp highlights already, and he's looking very similar to his New York Giants days, toe taps, what do you guys think where do you think he starts off his Cleveland career? Right now he is going at round 2, pick 1. I think he is the fifth wide receiver off the board. Do you think that's good? Good value. Do you see him hopping ahead of the top four at all? Where you guys see with Odell Beckham and his finish?
There's no receiver in the league that is more electrifying with the balls in his hands. He can take a slant at any time and take it to the house. He can make circus catches that you just don't think are even able to come down with the ball. He's a complete receiver. I mean, aside from the circus stuff that he pulls and shenanigans off the field and sideline antics, when he's on the field, the guy is a monster. I mean, I've had him on my team a handful of times, and he is a monster.
It's funny you bring up the off the field shenanigans. Like I just want to. The other day he compared himself to Tom Brady shenanigans, and I kind of laughed because I don't ever really see Tom Brady laying next to Miles that are snorting coke. So I don't think comparing yourself to Tom Brady. I understand what you're doing on the field, but you take it to another level on the field. So
you don't know, man. Maybe Giselle lets him blow lines off her belly button and shit.
Yeah, these receivers, these high end receivers, man. Aside from your Julio, these dudes are divas. They are major divas.
Really? Like I'm not really. Devontae Adams, you don't hear about.
Yeah, you don't hear from Devontae.
Michael Thomas seems like a guy.
No, I was going to say Julio. Even Hopkins is pretty much not out. So I guess it's just really him and AB. It kind of goes back to the days of what did you have? You had Tio and Chad Ochocinco. They were the class clowns.
Randy Moss was up there too.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Stars in New York, man. Lawrence Taylor used to do the same shit, except Lawrence Taylor didn't have YouTube and
social media.
Social media.
Yeah. But
that dude would have been all over the news every single week.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to Odell Beckham in fantasy. I just thought that was pretty funny. I think, of course, Odell Beckham has number one overall wide receiver upside. The dude is as talented as anybody in football. It's all going to be all about if this Cleveland Browns offense can click kind of the way it started to at the end of last year. Baker Mayfield looks like he is a legit number one overall pick and a very legit NFL quarterback. But he's still coming into his second year. He hasn't played a full 16-game schedule yet. He has the talent. I think drafting him number 5, I think that's actually where I have him ranked, is right after those top 4 guys, and that's how I would draft it. But as far as upside goes, I think OBJ could be the number 1 wide receiver if everything clicks and he stays healthy. That is the one problem. I brought this up with the AFC West podcast too. Like, a lot of people knock Sammy Watkins for his inability to stay healthy. Sammy Watkins has played more games than Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah. I fucking love Odell Beckham. I just think he is a supreme talent. I think he is maybe... Yeah, I'm not going to shy away from it. I think he's the most talented wide receiver in football. I do. I think Antonio Brown... I'm not going to say he works harder than Odell because I've seen Odell work out. The dude, he balls hard. But I think if you're talking about mindsets, I think they both want to be the best, but I think AB just wants to be the best a little bit more. You know what I mean? If you could quantify that, I would say, it's just that little bit. He wants it more. But if you just look at all of his metrics, he is unbelievable. If you go to Player Profiler, which is, a good site to look up, because they break down like individual stats. The dude had the most snap share. He had 19.9% in the, snap share last year, which was number 1. Team passing plays, he was the most targeted player. He was 8th in the league. He had 124 targets, pace. His target share was number 5 in the league. His hog rate, which is him being the most targeted player on his team, was number 7. His red zone targets, he only played, 11 games, I think, last year. and he was still the number 10 most targeted red
12.
zone player. Yeah. So week 12, so he played 10 games. Week 12, 11 games.
Okay. Yeah. 11 games.
Yeah, bye week.
12. Yeah.
So, red zone target share was 10th in the league. His end zone target share was number 3 in the league. The dude, just go through all of his metrics, and the dude is just fucking unbelievable. He's just an unbelievable player. So, I don't think it's even a question that he can finish number 1. He has the best quarterback he's had throwing to him, to me, in his whole career. Because I don't think, since Odell's been in the league, I don't think Eli has been very good. If he would have gotten Eli, 3 or 4 years earlier, I think his numbers could be crazy. But, he came into the league when Eli was just starting to, go deep into his decline. And with Baker Mayfield,
the Giants just built that team around skill position players so much. They didn't even give the offensive line was just terrible. They didn't.
They let it go to shit.
Yeah, they didn't give their. They had Odell. They had who was the other wide receiver they had? Sterling Shepard for a while.
Yeah.
I want to correct you on something, Steve.
They paid so much money. That's what it was. They paid so much money to the defense with Janoris Jenkins, Snacks Harrison. They gave so much money to those guys that they couldn't afford to pay their offensive line, and I think it just, what the shit.
Yeah.
Steve, you said that you think his numbers could be crazy, but his numbers are actually already bananas. Like his first, I think he had the fastest, or the most amount of yards in his first 2 or 3 seasons in NFL history. So imagine if he actually did have a more elite, quarterback than Eli Manning. This guy could be an all-time great. I mean, he could be in the conversation of all-time great. So
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not saying that his numbers have been bad, because you can't look at his numbers and say that they've been bad. They've not been bad. They've been very, very good. My argument is, like you just said, if he had Eli 4 years earlier, his numbers could be insane.
Jerry Rice numbers.
Yeah, really could be. He could definitely have better numbers than Antonio Brown. And if you look at Antonio Brown's numbers, and it's like me and Kev were talking about this, he has, and I know it's hard to believe, but he has like 100 and what did we say it was, Kev? Like 123 more catches than Jerry Rice did at the same point in their careers.
Something like
and AB's numbers are just insane, but they played in different eras. I mean, like in the league, they throw the ball insane now. They didn't throw the ball as much back then as they do now. So, it's hard to compare the two. But, regardless, he has number 1 upside. He is, to me, the best wide receiver in football, talent-wise. And if him and Baker really put it together this year, he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver taken probably for at least the next 3 years. If they click the way, people are saying they might.
Yep. You brought up just real quick, guys. You brought up a couple of times that this is a passing league and that this is just super air attack. Did you guys see anything about that conversation with Dan Marino a little ways back, where they asked him what he would do in a league like today?
Oh, he'd throw for like 7,000 yards.
That's what he said. He's like 7,000 would be average. He said,
man. I mean, they say that, but dude, Dan Marino was one of the players that threw ridiculous amounts. Like he threw a ton. Like he wasn't throwing any more than that now.
No. But dog, back in the day, back when Dan Marino played, there was no pass interference. There was no 5 yards. You can't touch the receiver. Those motherfuckers were getting mugged, dog. They were getting mugged. Literally, most motherfuckers.
And the quarterbacks were getting slammed. You didn't have all this protection that they have today. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say Marino's throwing for 6 or 7K. But he said dude, 7K, 6K would be a big
surprise if he threw for consistent 5,500 every single year. Like Dan Marino's just. To me, the best arm talent ever to play the game is Dan Marino, and I don't think it's close.
I agree.
Everybody says Aaron Rodgers, and I like Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is very pinpoint accurate, but he's not Dan Marino, dude. Dan Marino's just sick.
It's just funny. All these older, all the vets, and like You go into the NBA and they all say the same. Well, you can't touch anybody, so I would average 52 points. Dude, Will Chamberlain.
Wait. If Michael Jordan played in today's NBA, you're telling me he wouldn't score 55 a game? Dog, dude, MJ would score at least 55 a game, dog. He'd get, how many times he beat the foul line? Every time he went in the lane, he'd be at the foul line.
He'd average 30 foul shots a game.
Dude, they talk about James Harden going to the foul line every fucking 5 seconds. Literally, Michael Jordan would live at the foul line all day long.
Yep. All right, so we talked a little bit about OBJ here. Let's get into the running back situation. We'll kind of knock both of the guys out at the same time. Right now, Nick Chubb is going with I don't think it's that early. I think I wrote it. I think I wrote down the wrong number. I absolutely did. Yep, I absolutely did. Right now, he's going in round 2, pick 10. And Kareem Hunt is going in round 8 at pick 4. Do you guys think that Hunt takes the job after the suspension? Do you think that Nick Chubb is just going to be the guy and they just kind of mix? How do you guys see this running back situation playing out?
I think they brought, and I'm sorry to cut in, Dan, but this is what I think. I think they knew that they were going to. I think they know this team is a playoff team, period. The reason they brought him in is because Nick Chubb is been an injury-prone running back since his college days, and if something were to happen to him, the only thing that they could do, because they're not winning with Duke Johnson as the number one running back. I think they brought in Hunt just in case, like an insurance policy. If Chubb gets hurt and he can't play in the playoffs, we need a guy that we know we can depend on, is going to be very good, and that's Kareem Hunt. And literally they paid him $1 million. I'm going to give you $1 million to come in here and be my insurance policy to fucking Nick Chubb in case he gets hurt for the playoffs. I think they 100% believe they're a playoff team. They were almost a playoff team last year, and they didn't have the talent that they have now. So to me, I think that was just an insurance policy. I do not even in a little bit think that, I think Kareem Hunt will get some touches, obviously, because I think they're going to trade Duke Johnson before the trade deadline. But I do not think they brought him in there to be like, okay, Nick, fuck you. You know what I mean? You ran for us for fucking basically 10 weeks now. Go sit the fucking bench because now Kareem Hunt is that much better than you. No, I don't think so at all.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb, when he was in Georgia, man, he was handling the ball 30 times a game, every game, so he can handle a heavy workload. And Kareem Hunt, when he actually comes back into the league, he's going to be practically a year out of full NFL gameplay. So there's no way he's taking the number one spot, except like what Steve said, injury. It's definitely Nick Chubb's role. It's his team. He's going to be a good fit on this team. It's going to be an electric team. I mean, how many wins they put together? I have them at like 10, 11. I'm not as high in the 12, 13 like some people are, but I think I like Nick Chubb this year. I think he's in a good spot with this team, and it's gonna be fun. But Kareem Hunt, I'm not wait and see type deal with him. I'm not taking him in the 8th round because you're probably going to be disappointed. Way better value than that. He's not gonna get the ball 10 times a game.
Yeah, see, here's the thing, though. Right now, Nick Chubb is going with the 10th pick in the 2nd round. If Kareem Hunt comes in there in week 8 and just takes half the carries, or they split carries 60-40, like Chubb's not going to be the passing downs back. I mean, obviously, they still got Duke Johnson there. Chubb ain't the greatest receiver in the world. Do they just throw Kareem Hunt into Duke Johnson's role? Like, when he comes back, do they give Kareem Hunt a little bit more of the carries? To me, that's what makes Chubb a little bit of a scary pick at the end of round 2, because you don't want to be cruising through the first half of your season and then your 2nd-round pick starts splitting carries with another running back, not seeing any of the work. I mean, this is basically, all right, compared to what we talked about the other day with Kenyon Drake and Kalen Balazs, right? If those two guys split carries, Kenyon Drake we knew was getting all the passing work. So Kenyon Drake is a much more valuable player. If this winds up being a similar thing where they start splitting carries, Kareem Hunt's going to be getting the passing work. That's going to make Kareem like that makes Nick Chubb a lot less valuable in the second half of the year, and that just scares me for taking him in the second round.
Well, my counter argument to that would be they brought in OBJ. They have everybody basically there that they had last year, and then they added OBJ. I think more of the targets are going to go to those two wide receivers because now you can't. Last year, what's his name? Jarvis Landry was getting double.
But it's not really even about the targets, though. It's more about the carries. It's more about who's getting those carries. Because
I don't think like you think Kareem comes in and commands 12 to 15 touches a game. I don't see that.
How can you not see that from a guy who last year, like, this dude is Kareem? Do we forget Kareem Hunt and what he is?
No. I am not arguing that I think Kareem Hunt is not talented. I'm arguing that I think it would be detrimental to the team to bring Kareem Hunt in and give him that much work right off the bat, especially if these guys have been riding with Nick Chubb. You know how guys are. You know how guys in locker rooms are.
Absolutely.
They're not going to be beat for Kareem.
The team chemistry could definitely be affected if they did that. So it's all going to be. It could be about how they're moving in the run game with Chubb, but I don't think they also brought Kareem Hunt in and took the risk of signing the guy who has a domestic violence issue that we saw on video. Like, you take that risk of bringing him in, you obviously are going to use him a little bit. So even if they, I don't see Duke Johnson splitting 60-40 carries. Do you? Just carries.
No,
just carries.
No, not at all.
I could see Kareem Hunt coming in, getting the 40% carries. And that's going to hurt Chubb. And if that happens, your second round pick his production is going to go down as you're entering your playoff push. That's why Chubb for me is just a little scary in the back end of the second round.
All right, so so this is basically what it was last year. So, Carlos Hyde in the he played 6 games for the Browns. He had 114 carries, right? Nick Chubb came in from basically, then on, started 9 games, had 192 carries, 996 yards, and averaged 5.2 a carry. To me, that's
I'm not
impressive.
Nick Chubb's not good. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
I think Nick Chubb is a really good player. All I'm saying is that if he's going to be splitting carries, even 60-40, like I said, with
I don't
Kareem,
think it'll be that big of a split.
I just don't see how you keep. Dude, Kareem Hunt is one of the best running backs in the league when he's on the field. How can you?
I don't think Kareem Hunt is one of the best running backs in the league. No, I don't. I think Kareem Hunt is a very good running back. I don't think he's one of the best in the league. I think he benefited from.
You can't use Patrick Mahomes' argument.
No.
Because you read argument.
Yeah. No. I think he benefited from an Andy Reid offense. I don't think he benefited from the just the quarterback play. I think he benefited. Andy Reid has never had unproductive running backs. Think about it, ever, never. He's never had a running back. I don't give a fuck who it is. Deuce Staley. Did you think Deuce Staley was good?
No.
Deuce Staley was productive as shit under Andy Reid.
Way better than Deuce Staley.
Andy Reid's never had unproductive players.
And I'm not comparing the two. But what I'm saying is I think the Andy Reid offense just produces really good running backs. So Kareem Hunt is more talented than, a lot of those guys. But I don't think he's more talented than like Brian Westbrook or even like Jamal Charles. I don't think he's a better running back than those guys. I just don't. But in a different offense, going over to Cleveland, it's not the Andy Reid offense. And I think if you're just talking about straight up running style, I do think Nick Chubb is a better runner than Kareem Hunt is. Pass catcher, yeah, Kareem Hunt gets that all day. But if you're just talking about pure running ability, I definitely think Nick Chubb is a better rusher than Kareem Hunt is.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that he is. I think he definitely, like I said, I think Nick Chubb is a very good player. I'm not knocking Nick Chubb at all. I'm more so worried about taking a guy at the end of the second round who could wind up seeing a dip in his usage as soon as Kareem Hunt comes back. I just think that's something that all fantasy players have to keep in mind when they're drafting Nick Chubb is, I don't think he's going to lose his job to Kareem Hunt. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is this guy could go from literally getting 75% of the team's carries to dropping to 60% of the team's carries. And like I said, you're going into week 9 or week 10, you're getting that's the last 3-4 weeks of your regular season. You're getting ready for your playoff push, and your second round pick has just dipped in his production. I mean, that's just too much of a gamble to take, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's just the draft value that makes you nervous, and
exactly.
I can definitely understand that. But for me, I definitely think he's worth that because if he gives you. If he's a top 5 running back for the first 9 weeks of the season, then he's definitely worth that. He's definitely worth that second round pick. So let's move on to Pittsburgh, the darling of this.
We got 3 more guys to talk about on Cleveland.
Oh, okay, my bad.
We still got Jarvis Landry to get into. Do you think Jarvis Landry Yeah, sorry guys. We're kind of looking at each other, giving us the time sign here. Like we've been going for a long while here. Jarvis Landry. Right now his ADP is round 5, pick 7. Last year, a lot of people saw last year as a down year for Jarvis Landry. I actually don't. He was still like a back end wide receiver 2. And being drafted in round 3, I think, is what killed people because. He's being drafted as a wide receiver 1. That being said, this year you're drafting him in the 5th round as a wide receiver 2. And people are talking about, him seeing less targets or, anything like that because of Odell Beckham being there. My counter argument to that is we've seen plenty of offenses where 2 wide receivers have flourished. And actually, you look at what Juju and Antonio do for each other, like they almost take the attention away from each other. And that's exactly what these 2 are going to do. Like Jarvis Landry was the only guy on last year's team. Like we'll get into Njoku a little bit. I don't think Njoku, to me, I'm not really big on Njoku. I think he's just a touchdown guy. They had Antonio Callaway, last year. Like, he's another guy that's back, but last year Jarvis was the guy. And so defenses were planning their passing defense against him. I think you bring in a guy like Odell Beckham, it's just going to open things up for Jarvis Landry. I love getting him in the 5th round, especially in PPR leagues.
Yeah, he got 149 targets last year. He only caught 80-some balls, but that's still, I mean, if you're getting 149 targets, you are doing a very good job at least getting open for a small period of time. So, and he's always been a target machine because he's got great footwork and he's quickness. And I don't think the addition of Odell Beckham hurts him anyway. You got to remember these 2 were brothers. I mean, they're best friends since LSU when they were, teammates together. So they've been wanting to play together in the NFL since, and now they have the opportunity to. I think they're going to work out together. I think they're going to game plan together. They'll get on the same page with Mayfield, and it's just. I like Landry. I think round 5 is pretty accurate. If my wide receivers are not as strong as I want them to be, and I'm looking, he's still available where I'm at in that ADP, then I would definitely look at him as a draft spot.
Yeah, OBJ and Jarvis Landry got Zach Mettenberger drafted in like the 2nd round.
Dude, it's amazing. Like that's to me, and I don't think Mettenberger was a great quarterback, but dude, Les Miles was never good on like his offenses had so much talent. Like there's still guys in the NFL today that are like beasts, and his offenses just sucked every year.
Yeah, to me, Jarvis is as safe a number 2 as you can get in a PPR league. Period. I mean, like, I think these 2 are going to work off each other. I think Baker Mayfield is just a million times better than either one of these wide receivers has ever had before. He's a better quarterback than they've dreamt of having before. So,
Consider Ryan Tannehill.
yeah, Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill. God damn. But I don't know. To me, the sky's the limit on how good this. To me, this is a top. Oh man, I think they're like the second. I can't put them over. I can't put them over what the Texans have because the Texans have those 3 guys that I think are just all amazing. But I think I would put them over the Rams guys. I think I would rather have these 2 than the Rams guys. I think I would rather have these 2 than the Falcons guys.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's I don't know about the Rams
dude.
guys.
Julio and Beckham are like close.
The Falcons guys. The Falcons
Julio
guys,
and Odell are close, right?
Falcons guys, yeah, and Calvin Ridley and Landry. Even if you look at their draft position is close, who's at least being drafted compared to Callaway, and if you want to use Njoku, I guess Njoku. So, but yeah, I'm taking the Rams guys. The Rams got studs.
Yeah, the Rams guys are definitely studs, but I think that Sean McVay just makes them, I think, more just so good. Dude, I don't know what the hell their coach is going to be, but if he's any kind of competent, they're going to be amazing. Both of these guys both these guys might have 100 catches this year. I'm not even kidding. It might be like 130 targets for 140 or 50 targets for Odell and 125, 30 for Jarvis, and they both have over 100 catches. It literally can be that good.
And that's the thing, like we've seen, that's not unreasonable. Like if you look at what Pittsburgh, and I know Pittsburgh threw the ball a fucking ton last year, but it's not unreasonable to think that 2 wide receivers. You look at what Diggs and Thielen do, like it's not unreasonable to think 2 wide receivers can be productive on the same team. Jarvis Landry he's getting a bad knock because of last year. Mainly because he didn't live up to his draft value, and that's all. But you're getting him as a wide receiver 2 this year. He's going to live up to that. He's, like Steve said, in the PPR league, he's as safe as a wide receiver 2 as you can get. Let's move on to Baker. Right now, Baker's going round 6, pick 6. I'll just say that for me, that there ain't no way in hell I'm taking Baker Mayfield. And that's not a knock of saying that I don't think he'll be good. Like I think he has the chance to be very good. He's got some of the best weapons in the NFL. He showed last year with Freddie Kitchens as his coach that he could be a beast. But this goes back to something similar I was talking about for me with Kyler Murray. I'm not big on drafting guys that I haven't seen it from for a full 16, and Baker has not played a full 16, and and he's going way too early for me to take a shot on him in the 6th round. So how do you guys feel? Do you feel like Baker live up to the hype, and will he wind up on any of your teams?
Yeah, this is probably – I'm going to just go real fast, Dan, because literally I have like 3 things to say about Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield – I've said everything I need to say about Baker Mayfield just talking about the Browns so far. I think Baker Mayfield has all the talent in the world. I think he is eventually going to be a top 5 quarterback every single year. He's going to be a guy you draft in your top 5. I don't think that's this year. And it's only because of the talent that we have in the top 5. I'm not taking him, in the top 5 with the guys that are up there. To me, I have him ranked around like 7 or 8, and it's where he's going to stay. And it's not because of, any other reason other than I think the top 5 guys are so damn solid. And the two or three guys that I have behind those guys, I just feel like, have, 35 touchdown upside. And I do think I don't trust Kitchens enough to have enough confidence to put Baker in my top 5. Kitchens could be a one and done, because guess what? If this team don't make the playoffs, he's not going to be the coach there next year.
He'll be out of there.
Yeah, he'll be out of there. So
that's just the problem with this franchise. Is like you can't I guess they gave Hugh Jackson as long a leash as anybody could get, but you never fucking gave Hugh Jackson anything to work with. So you give him last year, and you give him what? How many games did he get fired?
I think it was it was early in the season, like maybe game 5 or something.
And that's what I'm saying. You didn't even give Hugh Jackson a fair shot at all, and that's the most chance you've given anybody. It's just a sign of a terrible franchise when you cannot keep the same. I think they literally – who was the guy they hired? think they hired for like one season and actually wasn't terrible, and then they fired him. Like, who was it recently? They had for one season.
Can you even keep up with all the coaches and quarterbacks on this team in the last 1 year?
No, that's what
you're not lying.
The guy they had for like 1 year, and he didn't do half bad, and then they just fired him. I think they went like 5-11, 6-10, which is actually good for Cleveland at that time. And they were like, yeah, we're moving on. So
I'll just say about Baker that I agree a lot with what Steve said. I think that this year he's probably going to finish in year 7 to 10. I got him 7, similar spots that you do, 7 to 8. He's going to be a great quarterback. He's a winner. I mean, he won at Oklahoma. You saw last year he turned that entire franchise around, mid-season. So, and they saw that in him, and they went and they did something about it. They brought in Odell Beckham, and they brought in Kareem Hunt. Who knows what production he's going to have? But they definitely are. They're pounding the offense, and this team has a ton of weapons. They got a lot of swag out there. I mean, it's going to be an electric team. So I think he definitely wins games. I think he has a lot of big games. I don't think he cracks the top 5. He's not on Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck's level yet. Who knows down the road if he's going to be, but he's not putting up those 4,000 or 5,000 yard seasons quite yet. So that's Baker.
Well, I think he'll go for 4,000. I don't know about 5.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just going to say down 5. I think 4,000 is definitely doable.
Oh yeah, I think he's
got too much talent to keep to not. Yeah.
If he stays healthy, it's almost a shoe-in.
Yeah.
For me, I think I have him ranked as my number 7 QB. Like, it's not like I think he's going to be bad. I don't like taking gamble at quarterback in fantasy. I'm much more conservative at the quarterback spot and going with the guys that I know can get it done rather than, that's more of the position I think that I am less likely to take a risk on because I just like getting good production from I guess this year I kind of am because Jameis Winston is the guy that I'm drafting. He's never really shown that he can be that guy. Although last year I think Tampa Bay had the best passing offense in the league, so maybe it's not that big of a stretch, and they're going to be throwing a ton because we're going to be losing. But yeah, for me, like taking Baker in the 6th round as a guy who just never did it is a little risky. David Njoku. Right now he's going around 8, pick 6. David Njoku won't be on any of my teams, mainly because I think there's way too many targets to go around. I think he'll be more of a touchdown guy. And if I'm this far into the draft without a tight end, I've been saying it, I'm probably just waiting and grabbing Delaney Walker or somebody in that range, maybe even Greg Olsen. Like I'm not going to waste the pick here on David Njoku when I really don't think he's any different from what those other guys are. He's more just touchdown or bust to me, so he probably isn't going to be on any of my teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's touchdown or bust. I do think he has 10 touchdown upside just because I believe that offense is going to be in the red zone a lot or, able to move the ball enough to get him, up to 10 touchdowns. But, 10 touchdowns when you only catch 45, 55 balls, and have 500 yards is just a back end, tight end. And I kind of think that's just where he's going to finish. So, I think he's going a little high for the production that you might get from him. I mean, he has 10 touchdown upside. That's not guaranteeing 10 touchdowns. He might have 5. You know what I mean? So yeah. I'm not gonna take him at his ceiling, and I think that's where people are taking him right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been a mediocre tight end. His first couple of years in the league, 4 touchdown seasons. I definitely expect the touchdowns to go up. I actually expect the yards to go up too, but there's just other guys that I would rather pick in that, tight end in that area that I think are more stable, more consistent. So I mean, for me, he's not really on my radar. I have other guys in mind, just like you guys do. So I think he's going to have a decent season because I think the whole offense is going to be productive. But I'm a pass on him.
Yeah, we kind of talked about Ebron a little bit, and David Njoku to me could have an Eric Ebron season from last year. Like that is the case where you're not really getting a ton of yards, but you are scoring a lot of touchdowns. But to me, like I said, I mean, in that offense, I think his targets are probably going to go down because you got the most talented wide receiver in the NFL on the team now. Whereas a guy in that same area like Vance McDonald, if I was going to draft a guy like in that area, that's probably a guy I'd rather have than him because, there's 200 and something targets out there in Pittsburgh that are available to go around. So Vance could see a lot of that, and he has a little more upside to me with that target share, with those open targets. Any other Flyers or Cleveland that you want to talk about? I mean, I think we pretty much touched on everybody being drafted. So let's move.
Callaway has Deshaun Jackson, games in him, but I don't know if anybody's going to take him. If he starts going off in the beginning of the season, he might want to spend some fab money on him. That's about it.
So let's move on to Pittsburgh and try to make this one a little bit quicker. Juju, we've touched on Juju a lot, so let's not hit on him too much. We've gotten into him a lot early in this season.
Got 180 upside, target upside, and he's going to be good. Yeah,
Juju's going to be good, extremely good for PPR. Right now he's being drafted round 2, pick 3. We kind of talked about him having number 1 wide receiver upside. But at the same time, he doesn't have Antonio Brown. He's never been the number 1 guy, and he will get a lot more of the focus from defenses. So, do you think that, where do you guys have him ranked? Where do you guys think that he finishes?
I have him ranked at, I believe, 7. But I definitely think he could finish number 1. To me, it all depends on how good this offense looks in the beginning of the season. Because if this offense looks like they can't move the ball because they don't have Antonio Brown taking all the focus off of, the outside, then, I think this team could struggle. The first 3 weeks of the season is really going to tell me a lot about the Pittsburgh Steelers. How they move the ball, how productive the offense is, how many points per game they're scoring, because that is all that is going to tell me how much impact and AB really had on this team.
Yeah, I got him ranked number 9, but I definitely think he can produce way higher than that. He's a young player with a huge ceiling way up there. I think as far as his stats this year, I think he definitely is in that 1,500-yard range again. He's just got too many games where he breaks out. He finds holes. He finds running routes. So as far as where did he end up last year with touchdowns? In the 8 range?
Who are you talking about, Juju?
Yeah.
Juju had 7.
Okay. So I think that number even goes up too. I think he hits double digits this year. There's no Antonio Brown. We know that Pittsburgh is going to score points. They're going to get touchdowns, and we'll get into Vance McDonald, but I'm not a big Vance McDonald guy. I think he had a decent year, but I don't see him having a big year. So my money's on Juju to be pretty much the star on that team and to carry the load on for a lot of the production.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to say real quick. Juju did have the most targets inside the 20 and inside the 10. He had 29 targets inside the 20 and 11 targets inside the 10. He only scored 3 touchdowns. So I think that's where, that might hurt him a little bit if Vance McDonald does start, being the red zone guy. That's the only real worry I have about Juju.
Yeah, I have him ranked 7 right behind Tyreek Hill as well. That's pretty much where I've seen him being ranked, and he's going beginning of the second round, middle of the second round, pretty much in every mock draft I've done. I have seen him go in round 1 for people who are trying to hit on his upside, but for me, I just can't take him in round 1 because I haven't seen him without Antonio Brown yet, and I'd much rather go with a lot of those other guys that they're the 6 other guys I have ahead of them. So. But yeah, I do think Juju's has a great year ahead of him if he can stay on pace with the way he's been the first couple of years in the league. Let's get into James Conner. James Conner is actually being drafted 3-4 spots ahead of Juju. He's going at the end of the first round with pick 12. For me with Conner, he just scored way too many touchdowns last year that boosted his numbers up so much. And I don't know if he can continue that pace this year. I don't know if their offense is going to be as good. And if they're not scoring as much, Connor's touchdown numbers take a hit. Man, I don't know, man. Connor, to me, it could be a little bit of has bust potential written on him for me.
Yeah, my problem with Connor is basically the same thing. He had 2 huge games against the Browns, which I don't think that's going to repeat this year. I think the Browns are like very, very much improved from last year. So, I don't see, a 200-yard, 2-3 touchdown game against the Browns like he had week 1 of last year. Then, a little bit later in the season, he had another game where he was, I think it was 170 and 2 touchdowns. So I don't see that repeating. And in every other game that he, played basically well, it was not because of him playing well. It was because, he had a lot of receptions in the beginning of the season. Like he was being targeted an insane amount. You know what I mean?
71 times, 71 targets.
Yeah. So like here, I'm just gonna go through his game logs, right? So, for a guy that everybody is so high on, I have an issue with, what I saw last year. So he had, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games where he had 60 rushing yards or less. That's not what I want out of my number 1 running back, right?
In those games, he scored touchdowns, which is how he saved you.
Exactly.
Like, if this offense isn't as good this year without Antonio Brown, those touchdowns may not be there, and he may not be saving you. That's what I'm saying. I think his bust potential is very high.
Yeah, he against Kansas City. Like, I'm just gonna read you the game logs real quick. So, against Kansas City, he had 8 carries for 17 yards, right? 1 catch for 5. No, I'm sorry. He had 1 touchdown. He had 5 catches for 48 yards. So his catches and his touchdowns saved you in that game. Then against Tampa Bay, who is one of the worst run defenses in football last year, he had 15 for 61, but he had 5 catches for 34 yards. Then against Baltimore, he had 9. It was his worst game of the season. He had 9 for 19, 3 catches for 25 yards.
Jacksonville.
Yep. Against Atlanta, he had a great game. Atlanta was terrible last year. Against Cincinnati, he had another great game. They were terrible last year. Against Cleveland, once again, he blew the fuck up. 38 fantasy points. And then he had a big game against Baltimore. The second time they played at Baltimore, he was 24 for 107, 7 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown.
Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Against Carolina, he had 13 for 65. He had a touchdown, 1 catch for 8 yards. Against Jacksonville, he didn't do shit. 9 for 25, 6 catches for 24 yards. Against Denver, he didn't do shit. 13 for 53, 4 catches for 42 yards. The 4 catches for 42 yards literally saved you. Had a fumble in that game. Against the Rams, 15 for 60, 2 touchdowns, which is what gave him his numbers. And then missed 3 games, and then they played him week 17 because they needed to win that game. He had 14 for 64, 3 catches for 30 yards. So if you take away those catch numbers, his season was not good at all.
So is he just basically an average running back that was a product of an unbelievable offensive line? I mean,
I think that's what it is, honestly, because Pittsburgh's always had a good line. Pittsburgh's line's been one of the top, I think, 5 in PFF consistently for like years now. So, it's pretty easy to run behind that line, and we'll just get into him now. But Jalen Samuels right now is being drafted almost as if he's going to be the pass-catching running back. James Conner got 71 targets last year. If Jalen Samuels winds up being the pass-catching guy, which he kind of was in that Week 17 game when they, brought Conner back. Now, Conner was also coming back from an injury. Maybe they wanted to make sure they kept him healthy. But if Jalen Samuels is taking, 50% of these targets away from him, 71 targets. Like, his catch numbers are going to go down, and that's just going to make his numbers look terrible if the rushing looks similar to the way it did last year.
Yeah, he's. I mean, bottom line, I don't think he's just not a first round pick, and he's going end of the first round, and there's just, I mean, you got Dalvin Cook right near him. You got, Melvin. Well, Melvin's more towards the middle, but you got who else you got in that area? Joe Mixon that we just talked about. So, I mean, these are guys that I would definitely rather have over Connor, because I think that the upside on Cook and Mixon is just so much higher. Don't get me wrong, I think Connor could have a really good year. The offensive line's incredible. The offense is going to score points, but they see something in Jalen Samuels that they like, and if he's getting some on the field time, and what if he outproduces Connor? With that offensive line being so good, he could very easily not only take some of the carries and some of the touches away, but take a majority of them. So I'm not real high on Connor. I think that last year he had a ton of touchdowns, and that did inflate his ADP for him right now.
All right, so let's get into Vance. All right, so Vance right now is the ninth pick in the 7th round. I think that is pretty much. Let me see where he is amongst tight ends. He is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th tight end off the board. How do you guys feel about Vance this year? Like I said, he's probably another guy he's not winding up on my team because I'm either drafting one of those guys that are going in the top 6, or I'm drafting. I would actually say top 5 because I'm not high on Hunter Henry either. So I would draft one of those top 5, and if I don't get one of those top 5, I'm waiting till the end. So Vance is usually a guy just doesn't really wind up on my team, but I could see him having a very solid year if he gets, I'll say 40%, 35% of what Antonio Brown's target share from last year was. I mean, 30%. That's 30% of 170 is 51 targets extra. I mean, that may be a little much, but if he winds up being that second guy, he could be a very solid tight end. How you guys feel about Vance?
Yeah, I like Vance. He's one of my tight ends that I'm targeting if I don't get a top 6 guy. I think where he's going is right to me, is right at his baseline. It's not his ceiling, it's not his floor. It's kind of where, the 9th overall tight end, I think, is kind of right around where I'm projecting him to finish. You know what I mean? I don't think that's too low. I don't think that's too high. And I do think he does have a little bit of upside if like Kev said, even if his targets increase by 40, I think he has the possibility of being, maybe tight end 7. So I like where he's going, and I have no problem taking him where he's going.
I'm not as high on Vance. I just think that there's just other guys a little lower down in there, that I like a little better. If I'm going to wait on tight end, I'd rather get somebody in better positioning in his area. So for me, same thing you guys said. If I'm going to really get one of those top 3-5 tight ends, I'll be happy. But if not, I'll find a guy a receiver, a running back that I'm higher on in that area, and just wait on tight end and get somebody that I think could produce similar or better than he can in the later rounds.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing too. I think Vance can be good. I'm not saying that Vance can't be good, but like I said, I think I'd rather wait until the end, wait until those later guys, and just build my team with depth at the wide receiver and running back positions. And if I have to stream tight end until maybe I can trade for one, or maybe one breaks out and then I can drop a decent amount of fab on the waiver wire if that happens. But I do think Vance could be, he has top 5 tight end upside because, like Steve said, 40 more targets puts him at 112, and there's not too many tight ends seeing that many targets. Dante Moncrief is drafted in round 11, pick 5. James Washington is going about 6 picks earlier at the end of round 10. which of these guys do you like? Which one has a better value? I mean, I guess the value's kind of similar. 6 picks isn't that crazy. We've been hearing a little bit more about Moncrief than in camp than James Washington, but Juju seems to think James Washington could sneak up on people this year. So, which one are you more likely to select this year?
Yeah, I'm gonna be real quick because of all the coaches that coach speak, I don't give a shit about. What's his name? Mike Tomlin is not one of the coaches that I feel that way about. I think he kind of speaks off the cuff. If he doesn't want to speak, he doesn't say anything. You know what I mean? He basically will sit there and go, "We're gonna play better next week." You've heard his press conferences. When he doesn't want to say stuff, he makes it a point not to say stuff. And he has been talking about Dante Moncrief. He's been saying that Dante Moncrief is been running with the ones, and he likes him a lot. He's doing a great job, and he's happy that they got him. So for me, I'm gonna go with what Mike Tomlin's saying, and of those guys, I'm gonna take Moncrief, and that's it for me. I think Washington could end up being something, but I think Moncrief has the straight line to being the number 2 guy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Moncrief's more the safer pick, but I would probably go Washington just because I think he's got the ability to break out. We've seen what Moncrief can do over the last few years and in Indy and last year, Jacksonville. But I think, I just from what we've heard about Washington, he's got a lot of talent, a ton of potential. And if they're both in that same area, and I know, Steady Eddie over there, Moncrief, you're going to get your probably 600 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think Washington could outperform that by a landslide. So he's probably would be a guy that I would take a flyer on and see how that pans out for me. So honestly, I think they'll both probably be similar in statistics at the end of the year, but I just would I would probably go Washington just because I think I'm pretty familiar with Moncrief already.
Yeah, I think for the very similar reason, I would go Washington as well, Dan. Very similar reason, just Moncrief, I think we kind of know what he is. I mean, I will say he's never really been in an off. Well, I guess you can't really say that because he had Andrew Luck tossing the ball. When Andrew Luck was tossing the ball, the dude was scoring touchdowns constantly. So, if he's able to kind of gain that same chemistry with Ben, I think Moncrief could have a good year, but I like taking a flyer on James Washington. He's more of the speedster. Guy that's probably going to get downfield and take the top off of the defense a little bit. So if a lot of that attention is drawn into Juju and James Conner, James Washington could get some shots down the field, and I like taking a shot on him in the 10th round, end of the 10th. We kind of talked about Jalen Samuels. He's going in round 9, pick 7. I just think that for a guy who's probably going to be like a Nyheim Hines type, I just think that's really high for me. So I probably won't have Jalen Samuels on my team. How you guys feel?
Nah, too high.
Yeah, I don't like his draft. I don't like where he's being drafted.
I was shocked to see that he was being. I was looking for him in like the 12th and 13th round when I was trying to find his ADP, and I'm like, where the freak is Jalen Samuels at? I know he's being drafted. Got up in the 9th round. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's going in the 9th round? Like, I understand. Maybe people are listening to what we're saying about James Conner, but I just think that's really high for, a PPR third down running back. He's not going to be James White out here.
Nah, that's what I was just going to say. He's not going to get 125 targets like James White gets. So it's not. No, it's way too high.
All right.
Yeah, if you have Conner and you feel like you absolutely need that handcuff, I understand.
Too high for a handcuff.
But yeah, exactly. It's too high for a handcuff. So
to me, like if you're drafting like in those rounds in that area is Deontay Foreman, Royce Freeman, like those are guys that could potentially take the job this year. I don't think Jalen Samuels is actually taking the job from James Conner, unless injury happens. Like I could see Deontay Foreman taking the job from Lamar Miller just because he's better. I could see Royce Freeman taking the job from Phillip Lindsay if, the Broncos offense just suits it that way. But
he's been the starter. He's been there before too. So I mean, like it's those two are 1A, 1B.
yeah, I just can't see Jalen Samuels taking the job outright. I just don't think he's that kind of player. So for me, yeah, I'm out on Jalen Samuels, and I don't even think he's a good handcuff because that's just way too early to take a handcuff.
Let's listen with Big Ben.
Yeah, Big Ben. I think I'll just say this: Big Ben is a solid quarterback to wait for. You know what you're getting. He's going to last year he was superb. This year, I think he's going to be kind of back end quarterback one, maybe just out of the top 12. But I think you're going to see similar Phillip Rivers type numbers. And like I said, that's a very safe quarterback to get. And right now he's going in the beginning of the 11th round at pick 3. So if you're waiting on quarterback, Big Ben's probably a good guy to get.
Yep, I don't really have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it all through all the podcasts. I mean, when you have a guy that say you want to get a Josh Allen that could potentially be blow up, make sure you piggyback it with your Big Ben because you don't, Josh Allen is hype and hope. Big Ben is, production right off the bat. So.
Absolutely. So we will sign off with that note. Don't forget to check out the website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That is www.4thandinchesff.com. A bunch of content on there. And until next time, peace out, guys.
Peace.
Later, guys.